c'est la matelote qui sautille, toutes les cloches sonneront.
Muy buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Tengo el gran gusto y honor de tener en el estudio a Cole Bendall de Gran Bretaña, que nos acompaña hoy. Él es un gran director coral y cantante, y nos acompaña hoy para hablar un poco de su actividad durante la cuarentena, su visión de los coros, lo que hay que, bueno, cómo este arte tiene que continuar y qué maneras ha encontrado para hacerlo. Y pues nada, vamos a darle la bienvenida. Hello, Cole, how are you? Welcome to the studio.
Hola, Kias. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I think this is a choral conducting thing of having a podcast during the quarantine.
Absolutely.
So I need to tell the audience how this happened. So Cole called me and he's like, I'm doing a podcast and I'm seeing that you are having one too. Why don't we exchange and have an interview? We both. So that's how this was created and how we decided to do this. So how did you decide to have a podcast?
I'm learning from the greats, of course. The magnificent conversaciones with quieras. Yes, of course. I have to study from the best. In terms of just generally why we might run this, it's much more like an occasional thing. During quarantine, I set up with my partner an organization called Click and Sing.
Okay.
It was kind of in response to virtual choirs and how they have been created. And I like the idea of a virtual choir. I wish I could fully support a virtual choir. And with full disclosure, I also edit virtual choirs and am involved in that kind of music making myself. But I've always felt that choral music needs a sense of being live, that it brings people together. And a virtual choir doesn't always do that. So we are principally running events on Zoom to bring literally hundreds of people together to sing major choral works. And it's very exciting. Yeah. But we are also running other activities alongside this, and the podcasts, the hashtag Click Conversations are just one extra strand of this. And we want to take advantage of the fact that while we are in quarantine, everyone is learning from everyone. Everyone is finding a way to develop their skills and learn from each other how we eventually get out of this situation. The situation in Mexico will be different to how it is in the United Kingdom and how we start getting folks singing again. But we need to be able to have these conversations. And so what better way to do that than a public forum like a podcast?
I love it. I think that even if every country has differences during these times, many things are the same. For the first time, we have a problem that's the same all around the planet. So I think these conversations are really, really useful. So we can share, especially in the choral world that's in a very difficult position now, we can share what we are doing and how are we dealing with the situation. So thank you for being here. So let's start with your everyday life. How is your quarantine life every day, like a normal day?
Normal being the key word. You know, in many ways, it's quite a lot busier than it was before quarantine. And I don't know whether that's because I'm actually doing more or whether that's because I'm still trying to get used to different aspects of this work. But quarantine is going quite well in terms of how I am. In the United Kingdom, as you're probably aware, we very sadly have the second highest number of deaths in the world right now, second only to the United States from COVID-19. And there are a lot of really difficult conversations that people are having about that right now in my country. And it's very hard to think how we as a society begin to recover from this. From an artistic perspective, we are fortunate in the United Kingdom that there is a significant amount of government support that has been given, but it's still not a particularly huge amount for the many professional musicians, creative workers, freelancers who are self-employed and do not have access to a wide number of benefits, a wide number of other additional bits of support. So for many, it's an extremely challenging and scary time. But we keep on going. There are many people who are taking the opportunity to be creative, and I, from a personal point of view, I am healthy. My family are healthy. I take a lot of comfort and happiness from that, and we're trying what we can to make sure we can keep making music in a healthy way for the time being.
Good. And also your personality is like creating and making people sing and being a leader, and that's very important during these days. People that are giving away happiness and opportunities to go on with singing and with their creative part.
It's very difficult to think what things would be like for me right now if I wasn't involved in some kind of creative process. I'm not the kind of person that enjoys sitting still, and I'm very sad that many of the things that I was looking forward to prior to quarantine are not currently able to happen. But as much as I am sad about that, I would hate to waste an opportunity to try and still make music and help people come together with music making. So I definitely want to keep that kind of thing going.
Yeah, I think that's very important, not to stop and to adapt. We cannot do it otherwise. So let me know, how was your first decision to be a professional musician? How did it all happen? How was Cole as a kid? When did you start seeing music as your profession and conducting in particular?
I didn't. There's a short answer. When I was a child, I wanted to be a chef. I was, I still like cooking. When I was a little bit older, I wanted to be a doctor, but then I ended up being terrible at science subjects. And I didn't even really consider it until my late teenage years. And I happened to have some teachers in school who saw some talent in my singing and encouraged me to take it further. I'd had music lessons from when I was younger, but I'd not considered it as a career. And then I got to university signing up for a music course, and I thought, well, maybe I should see where this goes. And then in 2008, I was about to start my undergraduate degree, and there was a television program in the United Kingdom on the BBC called Maestro. And this was a reality television game show with celebrities trying to be conductors. And they all appeared in front of this orchestra, and they had this power to conduct all this different type of music, from opera, symphonic, film, choral, and the winner of that was a comedian by the name of Sue Perkins, who was conducting the theme song from The Simpsons and the Beethoven 5. And I thought to myself, that looks cool. And so I went to, and so when I showed up at my performance lecturer's office as I started at university, I said I want to get into conducting, and he said, "Okay, prove it." So he put me in front of the university chapel choir. I was maybe 2 weeks into my degree, and he said, "Right, conduct plain song at the end of the service." And I am like, how do I? This is plain chant. I have never seen plain chant before. What is the rhythm? Where do I put a beat? I have no clue. I was terrified.
Of course, you do not conduct plain chant. That's
well, how do you lead plain chant? Of course, there's another question. But he shoved me in front of them to do it, and I was like, what do I do with my hands? And I was terrified, but I didn't get scared off completely, and it's kind of stayed like that since. Now, I kept on doing some conducting for a while, and I was kind of in and out, and I did other things. I did some education work, and I did arts administration work. I worked for different groups. I did postgraduate studies in musicology, but I reached a point where I just decided that, you know what, I want to see how far I can go in choral conducting. I just felt that I needed to make music, and as a performer, not just on the sidelines as a musicologist or a teacher or another thing. So I threw myself into this, and I was very fortunate to get the support I needed and the tuition necessary to feel like I'm becoming a better conductor. And there's still a lot of things that I'm working on, but I am really thrilled with a lot of the things I've been able to do, the people I've been able to meet, the places I've been able to go, just making music with friends. I couldn't have asked for anything.
Yeah, and our audience should watch this video. It's called Conducting, Sure on This Shining Night by Morten Lauritzen, and we will talk about it.
Okay.
Kindness must watch for me.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me know about this choir. You work with them a lot. I have seen on your
The-
videos. Tell me
sure.
about
So,
this group. It's amazing.
oh, that's very kind of you. The Reed Consort are a semi-professional group based in Edinburgh in Scotland, where I grew up.
Hmm?
The singers are mostly recent university graduates, postgraduate singers, really advanced amateur singers within the community. And we get together in short, intensive bursts and just make great music together. They are an extremely talented and flexible bunch of singers. So we can do concerts where we have 4 or 6 singers singing Renaissance madrigals, or we have other concerts where we have done Messiah. We had scheduled St. John Passion for next season before COVID outbreak. We have undertaken really demanding contemporary repertoire by Avo Part and Video Tormes. And a
Yeah.
range of other really challenging contemporary composers. And we also just happen to get on fairly well. It's a very productive rehearsal environment, and everyone who's involved is very much wanting to make choral music at the highest possible level. So a great group to work with.
Yeah, and we were talking before starting the interview about the way to rehearse with a group of people who already know a lot of things, what to explain to them, what not to explain to them, how to make them sing with passion and to be really with you when you are conducting. And watching the video, I see they are really singing with a lot of soul, without a lot of generosity. How do you get to that point when you get to a rehearsal with people that already know about music, already know about the pieces? Maybe they have sung them many times.
I think a lot of it is trust. There are too many times where you as a singer may stand in front of a conductor, sing something, realize that you have sung it wrong, and the conductor has just not noticed. But if you as a singer trust that your conductor is listening and responding to you in rehearsal and performance, it's much more encouraging to be able to give them a little more of yourself. So part of it comes down to your work as a listener,
Okay.
and making sure that you can identify those things that go wrong. And when you have identified those things that go wrong, that you work with those professionals to fix them quickly. Not every choir will need you to say, oh, you must do this in order to be in tune, or you must do this in order to sing the rhythm. Sometimes it's just simply, rhythm's wrong there, give that a shot again. And knowing the difference so that you are not coming across as patronizing, that you're not getting in the way, is crucial. But then once learning the notes is done and listening to make sure, is it sharp, is it flat, is it too loud, too soft, is the text clear, then we start thinking about form, we think about the structure, and if you as a conductor can convey something of where the piece is going, and you can convey that in gesture rather than always having to say everything, then singers respond to that. It's kind of like, if they know you're not going to waste their time, and it seems like a really selfish way to put it, but if you're not going to waste their time, they won't waste yours.
Yeah, if they see you know where you are going. Yeah, I get it. So I was reading about your Requiem pastiche, and that sounds that's very interesting as an idea, because for me, many requiems are so beautiful. It's like the most beautiful music ever. especially on the first movements, there are so many examples of great movements. How did you decide to do that, and which pieces did you choose? So hard a choice. And also, what I love is that it's also staged. How can you stage a requiem when people are just very sad? Or what do you do as a stage idea for a requiem? It all sounds incredibly challenging.
It was. So the short answer is it was. The background to this, the concept of the work is it is called Patchwork Requiem. And it comes from, for your listeners who aren't familiar with a pastiche mass, if you were to go back to 1600s or 1700s in performances in Venetian churches, for example, there was a way of performing mass settings where you would take different movements from different composers. And that was a fairly common way of presenting work. If you were to look at, say, many of Antonio Lotti's masses, for example, weren't fully performed in their original versions until, they're certainly not all performed until present day. A colleague of mine, Ben Palmer, recently recorded the Missa Sancti Cristofori, where the Lotti famous 8-part Crucifixus pro nobis comes from. But it's the concept of a mixture of different movements in a mass from different composers is not new. But I felt that there could be something in this in which we could take multiple elements of requiem masses, each of which can convey a slightly different viewpoint on what it means to mourn, to remember, to have fear of death, but also to find some solace in what comes after. So with that in mind, my partner and I, together, we just combed through loads and loads and loads of requiem mass settings. And it was interesting to see what we felt would work structurally.
Yeah, also to have a line, right, between one movement and the other, so it's not completely different.
So we made that work by combining the staging element, so that if there were something that was happening, if we wanted to change movements that wouldn't necessarily fit, then we could use a musical element or a staging element in order to allow it to reset. We also interspersed several movements with poetry about death and loss and memorial from a range of different composers and practices, including descriptions of autopsy and all sorts of other, it's like really different ways of understanding death. So the way that we presented this, we started with, we combined plain song as kind of an introduction, then a very famous movement from the Herbert Howells Requiem. Herbert Howells, a well-known British composer. And then we used the Domine Jesu Christe from the Durufle Requiem. So in that amazing introduction, we got our singers to process from the back of this cathedral to the front and enjoy that space. And then rather than worry too much about very specific ideas in terms of lighting or staging, we would go, okay, these singers are in dialogue with these other singers. They are having arguments. So Mozart, Confutatis from Requiem, starting confuta, maledi, maledi. It is tenor and bass just battering each other. And then angelic sopranos, vocame. It is, you can see obvious places in which the staging can be placed into something like this. So we took a combination of kind of classic, well-known requiem masses. We took movements from Giuliani, Fauré, Mozart, and a couple of others, but we also tried to find somewhat lesser-known versions. So we took a movement from the Stravinsky Requiem canticles, for example, the Liberame setting, which is really unusual, or versions or standalone movements from requiems by female composers. My understanding from the research, I found it extremely difficult to find requiem masses, entire requiem masses written by women composers. We ended up using one movement from Carol Barnett Requiem, which was kind of like a kind of, if you were looking at like Ligeti, Lux Aeterna, the pattern was like that. We also included a standalone Pie Jesu by Julia Seeholzer, American composer based in Poland. But we really struggled to find requiem masses written by female composers. If we were doing this again, I would really hope that we could try even harder to find more works by female composers and just find ways in which we can incorporate it into this structure. The advantage of this, of course, is that we can explore all sorts of different ideas with this kind of music.
Oh, I love the idea. Were you inspired a little bit by St. Matthew's Passion by Simon Rattle and the Berlin Philharmonic?
There are countless staged versions of choral works which I think are in vogue right now. The St. Matthew and St. John Passions with Berlin Philharmonic are fantastic. Los Angeles Master Chorale have done a staging of Orlando di Lasso's Lagrime di San Pietro, which is amazing. And I used to sing with the Scottish Chamber Orchestra Chorus, and we did a staged version of the Hubert Parry Songs of Farewell. And it's just so weird and wonderful to see choral music finding a way to present itself in a different format. That, for me, I find more interesting than saying, I'm just going to sing the Fauré Requiem. I love the Fauré Requiem, but I've done that enough times. What can I do to present it in a different way? Yeah,
to make new things. That's great. So between the pieces you sent a part of Brahms' Ein Deutsches Requiem. So was this part of this project, or this is only a piece that you conducted?
In the Brahms Requiem, we did use the Brahms Requiem in a Patchwork Passion. Patchwork Requiem. Spoiling another project there. We did a movement, but we did the Wie lieblich sind deine Wohnen. The video that you're about to watch is the sixth movement of the Brahms Ein Deutsches Requiem. Denn wir haben hier keine bleibende Stadt, which is an amazing combination of baritone soloists,
and the choir,
big dramatic fanfare, and then fugue that just seems to last forever, but is absolutely gorgeous. I really have a soft spot for this work, especially in the version that we have for two pianos, or four hands piano, which is really cool. Yeah.
Okay, let's listen to Cole conducting this part of the Ein Deutsches Requiem. So thank you for this beautiful, beautiful interpretation of this part of Brahms' Requiem. So next part of the interview, I want to talk about a thing that I consider very important, which is the function of arts and artists during these very difficult times. I just read something that Hélène Grimaud, the French pianist, wrote on her Facebook, and I want to read a part of that and then comment over that and see your point of view of our role as artists during this pandemic. So she wrote, all these great composers weren't shielded from the struggles of their times often much more violent than ours, but all faced with fortitude and with their humanity intact. What we hear in their music is a fragile and poignant alliance between the tragedy common to all mankind and what comes to rescue and redeem it as a deliverance. Our time needs, once again, a more intense music to create a space to live in truth, a time to love beyond the many current miseries. In a time where the darkest predictions assail us, sometimes in a suspect escalation, let's remember to stay confident in the resources of harmony, to stride over all woes and to answer them on a higher level. Music is an opening onto the infinite. Nothing can silence this song to come. Let's keep our ears open to what will come take place, perhaps as silently as on dove's feet. In solidarity, Hélène Grimaud.
Moving. Really moving.
Yeah, I loved it, and I've been thinking a lot about these times and the arts and our roles. And what have you thought about it?
I think that music making is essential for us to make our way through this crisis. We are creative. We, as a species, we have thrived on finding ways to self-express during times of trial and conflict. And that quote was enough to remind us that performers, composers, music will continue in some way, shape, or form. I'm reminded of a John Cage story while he was in the middle of preparations for 4 minutes 33, his famous work, which is extremely structured silence. And as part of his research, he got access to, I think it was like this hyperbaric chamber in NASA. It's like
where he listened to his blood.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those chambers in which you cannot. There's no light coming in. There is no sound. It is airtight. And he went in for a period of hours. I don't know how many. And he came out and he was saying he heard two noises. He heard this like loud whoosh sound and this thumping sound. And he was told that is his heartbeat and the sound of his blood going through his body. And he was like, as long as there is sound, as long as there is life, there is music. And it seems like such a, I like that idea. I absolutely love it. Now, does that mean that music will remain in the same way that it has? I suspect not. I think
it needs to adapt to move, and I think that it will express what's happening also. So of course, it will have a change. I think it will.
But this is my my biggest concern is whether this change is something that a lot of organizations are prepared to manage with. I think that one of the biggest issues facing my work right now is that in amateur choral circles, for example, so in addition to my work with Reed Consort, I work with community choirs, and I work with adult singers from different aspects like amateur choirs, all of astounding quality, and I'm really glad to be working with them. But the challenge is, of course, they're in a situation right now where you cannot rehearse live. It is simply impossible.
Impossible. Yeah.
Not only because of the current issues with social distancing and isolation and quarantine, but using technology, we cannot rehearse.
We don't have polyphonic Zoom.
No, and that would be great. But
That would be great.
But in some ways, I think that where there's chaos, there's opportunity. And I think that there is a real possibility here that we reflect on what we do as musicians, how we rehearse as performers, what kind of ensemble combinations can we make work in this time. This might be extremely challenging for people in our industry to manage. And so we need to reflect on our teaching practice, on what we do to support not only those kind of, in English, we would call these types of teaching synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous when everyone is learning at the same time, and asynchronous when they are learning differently. So synchronous, people logging in on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype, and they will have a conversation or a discussion or a lecture or a rehearsal there. But then asynchronous, can you film part of a rehearsal and share it with folk? Can you prepare singing games and exercises that a youth choir can practice online? And can you still achieve similar outcomes in terms of performances or creative output? That, for me, I think is the most concerning thing, is that if we can't have performance or recording in the way that choirs typically have had that in the past, what will be our new creative project that we can aim towards this year, maybe next year, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So tell me about Click and Sing. How is it working? How are your ideas being put into action there? Tell us about your...
So Click and Sing, as mentioned earlier, is a project which my partner Alicia Pettit and I launched back in the beginning of quarantine. We took a couple of weeks to start to model what we wanted to do with it. And it came from a response to virtual choirs and trying to still bring a sense of choral community online. The model is we basically prepare recordings of choir and orchestra or choir and accompaniment, and allow people to have a sing-along to it online for free. Basically, think choir karaoke. You bring that together, and people can access that for free on our couple of sessions that we run every month, and they make donations to our running costs, but also to relevant charities. So right now we've raised several £100s already for charities supporting homelessness, supporting those trying to get out of food poverty and hunger, to health organizations. We're currently raising money for a musicians charity in the United Kingdom. And we've had an extraordinary uptake of people interested. We currently have about 1,200 people supporting us on various social media platforms. We've been fortunate to have been featured on national radio. We have had various activities promoted by a wide range of people, as well as opportunities to make some really interesting musical projects. So whether that is we're running workshops for folk learning how to make music online, or we're running a youth workshop, and I'm bringing on, I wonder if I have it, one moment, there is down here, there is down here a little puppet, and I will use puppets in singing games, and they will just get themselves involved as we're participating. And this is fantastic because we're finding ways to engage with people from all backgrounds now.
I think the games and having fun is also very important to make people come and enjoy singing. We should go on singing.
Yeah.
So I invite everybody that's listening to this to go and Click and Sing on Facebook, and I don't know if there's another social media or Instagram, or
Yeah,
where are
I
you?
mean, so you can find our website at www.clickandsing.co.uk. We run a range of free activities, including our monthly Click and Sing events. If you are, most of our events run in English, but we do have, in terms of the sing-along element, you are welcome to just come along and sing in a game with us, and you can sing along to these famous pieces, and we'd be very happy to have you there. We also run some extra workshops if anyone is interested in learning how to read music, or if they want to find ways in which they can make music online. We have our Facebook page on facebook.com/clickandsing, and you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at clickandsing.
Good. So the invitation is made. So please go and look for them. They are doing great job. So
thank you to your producer, by the way, for putting the label on the screen so quickly.
So we are going to listen to one of the most beautiful pieces of choral music ever. I just love it. It's Bruckner, Christus Factus Est. So, and then we will comment on it. Please, Joshua.
Thank you.
Okay, I love it. It's one of the most beautiful pieces ever, and what you do with it, I think it's amazing. It's deep, it's crystalline, and at the same time very intense. Tell me about your work with the choir to prepare for this piece and your vision of it. And
so in the United Kingdom, especially with these kind of project choirs, kind of like how the Reed consorts run, and in professional circles, you often have quite a limited amount of rehearsal time. To put this into context, while I was training to be a conductor, I was doing a lot of work as a tenor singer in cathedrals in Edinburgh and in Guildford, which is a town just outside of London. And the format for that would be, if you were singing in a evensong service at 5:30 p.m., you would start your rehearsal at 5 p.m. That would be the first time that you see the music, and you would be expected to just go through everything you need to in that usually 20-minute rehearsal to then sing an hour worth of music. So you have to be extremely efficient in terms of how you prepare it. This particular performance of Christus Factus Est was around about Easter time in 2018, and the singers, all of the singers in there are extremely experienced and come from that same kind of background where they are used to short, extremely intensive rehearsal. And this particular project, we had, I think it was 9 hours to rehearse Brahms' Ein Deutsches Requiem and 3 Bruckner motets. This one, Locus Ester and Os Justi. These, and a couple of those are a little more straightforward, but this is still a very demanding program to produce in a very short period of time. So we had to think very quickly as to what are the really critical elements that we produce here. For this choir, the biggest issues are not in terms of learning the notes.
The notes, yeah, they already know the notes.
Yeah, they know the notes. They've sung this piece 1,000 times. It's not necessary. But little tuning elements, understanding where the ensemble lies, listening to overtones and the breathing and the constant engagement with sound and breath. And I was very, very fortunate that they were prepared to go with me on what I was saying. We spoke briefly in another context about Bruckner as one of those composers where you can just find something new every time that you're looking at the piece. And so you have to spend some time to double check the structure and feel that you are reaching the really critical points. But the singers knew what they were doing, and I trusted them that they were going to give me the big notes where I needed the big notes. I think you got them. Well, I'm glad we did. It's so difficult to kind of maintain restraint on something like that. Bruckner is one of those things you just want to just go the whole way through, and actually it does extremely well to just be calm, and then the dagger goes in, and then it is so painful and horrible, but it is also so much of release and power. I love it. I'm a huge fan, and that concert was really well received. That and the other Bruckner motets and the Brahms we did. It was a real joy to prepare that program.
I know, and the place is beautiful. That St. Mary's Cathedral is beautiful.
That was the cathedral in Edinburgh where I was a lay clerk, and I have many happy memories of singing there. I did recordings, I did broadcasts for radio there as a chorister and as a soloist. It was a very, very nice place to sing. I do miss
How
it.
do you how do you work? Yeah, how do you work with the acoustics at a place like that while you are conducting? How do you take that into consideration?
In the nicest possible way, it's tended not to be a huge concern there. I've tended to, since that has been a place where we've done a number of concerts, I'm very used to the kind of the time delay in sound there. And so long as I space the singers appropriately, I find that I don't have any significant delays with acoustic, or those delays that do exist serve only to enhance the quality of sound. There are maybe two pieces that I have done in there which have been less ideal for that. One was both by contemporary Estonian composers, as it happens. One was the Veljo Tormis Raua Nedmine, which translates as Curse Upon Iron. It's a piece for choir and soloists and a shaman hand drum. So you have to use a percussion instrument the whole way.
So it needs to be very, very fast, maybe very clear.
Well, it's just rhythmic. It's the bang, 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 bang. And the space is really good in terms of projecting that sound, but you had to choose moments in which you needed to really go out and then wait. There was one particular moment in that piece, you must listen to it, where the choir just starts screaming, and they scream for like 5 or 6 seconds, and then you just go bang, and everyone goes. Is the most terrifying moment, and that sound of screaming just stays there. It was so good, but it definitely was challenging. The only other piece I found
the timing
difficult. Yeah. The only other piece I found difficult in that climate was Arvo Part's Passio. And that has a mixed instrumental ensemble and organ, and so it was more trying to adjust to timings of when the organ plays and making sure there's a camera to make sure that they're following my conducting. They had to play, I think it was 1/8 note or 1/16 note faster than I was conducting, just to be able to be fully in sync with myself and with our soloists and stuff.
That's a good preparation for the Zoom rehearsals.
Not a chance. Zoom is a language of its own. I do not yet fully understand how to make Zoom work. We'll keep trying, but I'm learning something new every day. Earlier today, I was teaching a single a voice lesson, a one-to-one voice lesson, and having to go and look at very specific things on how I am producing the sound and how that is getting to my students. Oh my goodness, you must spend so much time right now reassessing everything you're doing. It's so cool,
because
but
they
also
don't
interesting.
the same thing you are doing.
It's always
So
your live responses are so different. Your live response is so weird, and you have to think of something different every single time when you are working with this. It's a great experience, and it's great to be able to keep making music, but it's hard.
Difficult. It's challenging. Yeah, I had the same thing with my piano lessons. Suddenly you're like just imagining what they are doing because you can listen, but the sound is so bad. You don't get all of the...
Absolutely.
So for the final part of this interview, we will go to the pleasures of life and music and food and traveling. Tell me about your best traveling experiences that have happened because of music, because of going and conducting somewhere else or studying somewhere else, or what comes to your mind first?
Oh, goodness. 3 come to mind. I'll try and be as quick as I can in each of them. I have a tendency to speak too long. The first, and obviously the most important, was meeting yourself in Sartiano in Italy. We are both alumnuses of the C07 International Choral Conducting Workshop, led by the unique Brian O'Connell and the absolutely magnificent Simon Carrington. They are outstanding workshop leaders, and the whole environment of that school is one where it is very collegial. People want to make music. They want to work hard to produce good quality sound. I think I have great memories of lots of really good conversations and good rehearsals there, and really different thoughts about how I can make music. But it was also quite fun because I was the only British person there besides Simon when I went there last year. And so it was strange to see everyone coming from the American background of making music, and how people from, in say, a high school education environment happens to teach music. And then I've come from a position where like I have 20 minutes to rehearse the choir, and I'm like, okay, this, done. And then we're, love the experience of music making. Earlier this year, I was fortunate to travel to Ankara in Turkey. And I was working with the Turkish State Choir and their conductor, Burak Onur Eridim. I was invited as part of a masterclass, and what a wonderful environment to explore that culture and to make music with them, understand some more about Turkish folk song, and also perform some really great music by Lotti and Fari and Litel and others. It was just, I loved every second of it. And then have to give a standing memory to 2 years ago. I was traveled to Berlin, and I was fortunate enough to work with the Rundfunkchor Berlin on masterclasses and a concert. I performed Verdi Te Deum in concert, and that's gonna stick in my mind for a very, very long time. There's something very special about a really solid symphonic choir, bringing them extremely quiet and just giving them a look and going, now you can open up, now you can give me this, now you can, and then you let them just give you this sound, and it just goes directly into your brain. I still find it difficult to find the words to describe how powerful those experiences were. But with music making, you get to travel everywhere. You get to, even locally, you make so many friends in your own country or in your own region. And I've been so privileged and blessed to have that opportunity to travel. I look forward to doing so again once.
Yeah, I hope it will be soon. Yeah. And the final question, you mentioned before, one of your choices of life was to be a chef. So how is your cooking this during the quarantine?
In some ways it's been good, in some ways it's been bad, because I've been trying to be on a diet while I've been in quarantine. I was a bit I found myself a bit overweight recently, and I've been trying to do stuff about it. I'll say being on a diet in quarantine is one of the saddest things you'll ever do, because it's one of the things that you would think, okay, if I am feeling unwell, I shall have a plate of nachos, and I shall have candy and crisps and soft drinks, and everything will be fine, and I will let the day go by, and it is okay. And now I'm like, no, I can't have that. But I've been trying to have fun with my cooking anyway. I've been experimenting with baking, so making bread, making those kind of things. I've done a lot of cooking of good roast dinners, so like spending a long time with like working meat in an oven, that kind of thing. I've been creative, but I'm missing my chocolate, I'm missing my nachos, I'm missing my pizza. It's it's a tough time.
Yeah. As you say, it's not the easiest moment to be on a diet, but
no, not at all.
But your roast and your bread sounds good. Sounds like a good choice also. So, Cole, thank you so much for being here with us. It's been such a big pleasure to have you here, and thank you for all of your interesting answers and sharing all of your experiences during this time. And go, everybody, go and click and sing, and hope to see you soon somewhere in Italy.
I certainly hope so. Thank you again for the invitation, Akias. It's been an absolute joy speaking to you again. And thank you to your listeners. Gracias.
Thank you. So for saying goodbye, we will listen to Cole conducting Ave Verum Corpus. Franz Liszt is a composer. Hasta pronto. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.